I mean, my initial reaction to this announcement several weeks back was, are you, really? Like, you couldn't have formulated a better matchup. I mean, I'm not trying to be negative about either team. I got a lot of respect for Mark Stoops. I think both programs have a lot of respect for one another for good reason. There you got the Deuce Hogan storyline, and it sounds like maybe Deuce plays a little bit on Saturday. We'll like to get your opinion on that. But overall, I think both of these teams would like a different opponent. And then you have the Louisville Kentucky basketball factor. Just talk about the matchup and how is the Kentucky fan base handling this game on Saturday?
The best way to probably describe it is rather apathetic. I mean, me personally, I'm excited because, Kentucky, this is only the 22nd bowl game in school history and 7th in a row under Stoops. So it's not something to the point where I think Kentucky football should be saying meh at a bowl game. But as you said, you have, as the caller who was on before you made a lot of, took a lot of my material, just kidding, made some good points. The Kentucky-Louisville basketball game is at noon on Saturday. Obviously, that's one of the biggest things here in the state of Kentucky every year. And then you also have the Music City Bowl. And honestly, with the player opt-outs that Kentucky's had, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and just the fact that, it's Kentucky and Iowa playing again, and the question is, why? But as the caller before you said, that's the game that the Music City Bowl apparently wanted. And to go back to what the person was saying before, Las Vegas did want Kentucky, and the story that was going around here was that Kentucky didn't want to go because it was that weekend before recruiting, before signing day. So there does appear to be some validation to that. But as far as the game, like I said, the fan base is not real excited, and it's only a 3.5 hour drive from Lexington to Nashville. So usually you get 30,000 Kentucky fans driving down there. We'll see how it turns out on Saturday. But like I said, generally it's just kind of like, we're playing Iowa. Okay, let's try to go 2-0 all time against them. One of the things I do for Last Word on college football is bowl projections, and the last one I had Kentucky and Minnesota playing, which I thought would be a much more, because those two schools had never played. But I don't know. Do you think that Iowa's lost that last game against Nebraska? Do you think that hurt where they ended up? Or
Kevin, I'll just be quite frank. And people ask me this during the season every year, like, oh, where do you think Iowa's going to be? I don't know anything about bowl selection. So that's why people like you were around, Kevin, because I have no feel. And listen, I know people want that. I know Scott Dockerman on the Iowa beat does a lot of that. And so you would have a better feel for it than me. I can tell you from an outsider's perspective, I look at it, and from what you just said, that's an obvious reason to match up Kentucky, Minnesota. Now, did you have the Music City Bowl?
Right. I'm sorry.
Did you have them in Nashville, Minnesota?
I actually had Kentucky. The last projection I did, I had Kentucky in the Music City Bowl. I had them playing Minnesota. I had Iowa in the Mayo Bowl, I think, playing. I think it was North Carolina State, but
okay.
But anyway, that's how I had it. Obviously, that's not the way it worked out. But still, like I said, anytime you get to play, and I give Coach Stoops all the credit in the world. He's he's certainly not apathetic about this. Kind of the same what I was talking about. You don't ever scoff at a bowl game. It's another month to get prepared. Some people are kind of saying it's almost like an early look at 2023. Because of the opt-outs and all the other issues, things that have been happening. So, like I said, I'm looking forward to it on Saturday, and I'm looking to see if we can get over the over-under. So,
I'm going to get to the opt-outs in a second. I do want to give a shout-out to the sponsor here, our sponsor at Iowa Football, the Voice of College Football. On today, we're simulcasting to SEC at the Voice of College Football. Gene Arthur Associates sponsoring the show. Contact Gene Arthur Associates. Link in the description below for all your home auto, all your insurance needs. Certainly click that link, and appreciate Gene Arthur supporting the show as they have been all season long. Kevin, you mentioned opt-outs, and I recorded a show with former Iowa assistant coach Don Patterson yesterday. It'll be released on my channel tomorrow. But one thing he did make a point of saying, and exactly what you just said, this is an opportunity due to opt-outs, due to the transfer portal, and people going to the draft and wanting to prepare for that early, an opportunity for younger guys to see the field. So, who's on your short list of Kentucky guys that maybe Wildcat fans have not seen here in 2022 that you think could make an impact in this game?
Well, you start at quarterback. Right now, Kaya Sharon is listed as the starter. He played the one game against South Carolina that Will Levis did not when he had the turf toe problem. I thought he did a pretty good job. He was like 17 out of 29 for 100 and somewhere around 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just, this is one of those, South Carolina was just the better team that night. But a guy who's also talking about getting some reps is a freshman named Destin Wade. He's a highly touted player from Nashville. He and his brother Keaton signed with Kentucky as part of last year's class. Hasn't played at all this year, but like I said, Vince Marrow, Scott Woodward, and maybe a host of others are kind of calling the plays. And it looks like both of those guys and possibly Deuce Hogan may see some playing time. And from the Kentucky standpoint, it would be kind of crazy if Deuce Hogan was to lead a last minute, touchdown drive to win the game or something like that. But Destin Wade is the guy that I'm keeping an eye on. He was a Class 6A Player of the Year, Mr. Football in Tennessee last year. Threw for over 2,000 yards, ran for over 1,000 yards. He's that dual threat kind of player where Sharon's more your standard drop back passer. That's a guy that I'm really interested in seeing getting out on the field, and I think a lot of the Big Blue Nation is as well. And then behind him at the running back position, Chris Rodriguez also not going to play. Cavassier Smoke, the normal backup, he put his name in the transfer portal. So you've got Lavelle Wright and Juton McClain. Both of those guys have played. Wright has not played a whole lot. He played early in the season, has not played very much lately, and it's kind of one of those points where get in, show what you can do, going ahead into the next season. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Carrington Valentine, starting quarterback, has declared for the draft. Andrew Phillips will start in his place. And then DeAndre Square, the guy you guys probably don't want to talk about. Anyway, we're going to do DeAndre Square is not going to play. Trevin Wallace will be in his spot. So, like I said, Destin Wade, Andrew Phillips, and Lavelle Wright and Juton McClain are guys just off the top of my head that I'm really got my eye on Saturday.
I'm assuming Destin and Keaton are brothers.
Yes, they are.
So you're going to see Keaton at linebacker. He's going to play a little bit. I saw him on the 2 deeps, and
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious because that was the commonality from Coach Patterson in recording that show yesterday too, is what he had heard, and he's just hearing rumblings just like I am, but what he had heard, and you would know better than I would, that Destin's kind of the number one guy. I know the depth chart has 3 guys as the number one guy, but is that kind of how you feel? Even though, like you said, is it Sharon? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Sharon.
Even Sharon seen more time.
He's seen more time. Like I said, I think Wade is going to be may end up getting a majority of the reps. We'll see what happens. Kentucky going against that very, very strong Iowa defensive line. The defensive line dominated last year, and Kentucky had a whole bunch of had a much better offensive line than they do this year. And Iowa's guys up front, dominated the game. And that's going to be something to keep an eye out from. And as for Wade as as the running threat, that may be something where he can, make some open field, make some plays in the open field and, keep drives going, things like that. Like I said, I'm interested to see what he can do.
So what is the general consensus from the fan base, Kevin, as far as the Music City Bowl in comparison to the Louisville basketball game? Like, I know Kentucky's a basketball school, and our caller before you jumped on talked about the little feud that Stoops and Calipari had way back when. Wasn't that long ago, actually. But
yeah,
what is the consensus from fans about those games overlapping? It just seems odd to me that you would want that, even from a Music City Bowl perspective.
Right. I agree. There's been a couple people have put polls up on Twitter and other places, and surprisingly, 55. The bowl game is say which game are you going to watch? You're going to watch Music City Bowl, or you're going to watch the basketball game? And surprisingly, to me anyway, the bowl game has been getting has been winning most of that. Like I said, I don't understand it, why you do that, but we know TV and ESPN makes the rules, and everyone else just kind of has to go along with it. I said the Kentucky the basketball game. One thing about it, the Louisville, if you followed it, but Louisville right now is one of the worst teams in college basketball.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're like 2-10 or something like that right now, with a lot of really, really bad losses. So in theory, it should be a Kentucky win, but you never know with a rivalry game. And like I said, I've been surprised that more people are saying now that they're more interested in the football game than the basketball game. When it was first announced, I think it was the other way around. But I think the closer we're getting to that game, to Saturday, people are, I think, just from what I'm hearing, coming around a little more towards the football game.
So, Kevin, fill me in on this. Is Deuce Hogan on scholarship right now?
I'm not. I thought he was still a walk-on, like a preferred walk-on. I don't know. I can't apologize. I don't ever remember seeing him getting officially put on scholarship. But I know he was like just a preferred walk-on before. So that's what I'm going to stay with. And then if I'm wrong, I'm sure somebody will jump on quickly and correct me. So
how apt or how willing has Mark Stoops been over the years to deploy two quarterbacks in a game? Or three. I mean, we see guys like Jeff Brom at Purdue. I mean, I say that because now Kentucky fans are going to see Jeff Brom a lot more. He did that
right
against Iowa, Purdue last year. Remember him playing three different guys in one game. How apt is Stoops to do that?
Not very. So, which is what makes the whole thing even more interesting. Usually he has his one guy and he sticks with it, sticks with that person, whether it was Levis, Terry Wilson before that, Steven Johnson. He gets the one guy and usually stays with them, and then you don't see the second string or even the third string guy unless it's like a 56. Unless it's like a blowout. He usually keeps the main guy in for most of the game, unless something necessitates injury, something like that. So this is going to be interesting. I've never really seen them do something like this, at least what they're talking about. So it adds a little more to intrigue to the game on Saturday.
When I look up and down the depth chart that was released on Monday by the Kentucky Athletic Department, I was particularly intrigued to look at a fairly green running back room. But tell us about, is it Juton McClain? He's a junior. So he's been around the block. How much has he? I'm assuming he's played quite a bit. He's played second fiddle to Rodriguez. Can you give us an idea of what to expect with him?
He's 5'9", 187 pounds. He's run for 238 yards this year, ran for 165 last year. As I said, he and Lavelle Wright played a lot more earlier in the season. For those who may not remember, Chris Rodriguez was suspended for the first 4 games of 2022 for an off-the-field issue that happened, and then also some NCAA, quote, violations or whatever. However the case you want to use it. He's more of a they're both, they're not like Rodriguez. They're not going to be like the guy that's just going to try to run you over. They're more of a slash and dash kind of guy. Like I said, neither one of them has played that much after the first few games of the season. So they're both healthy, and right now they're the only two, along with Dee Beckwith, who's a former Tennessee transfer. He would probably be your third guy on the depth chart. Those guys haven't played a whole lot since early in the season. So I'm pretty sure, to use a cliche, they're chomping at the bit and ready to go.
The Hawkeyes, of course, will be without arguably their two best receivers in Arlen Bruce and Keegan Johnson. Johnson committing to Kansas State. Arlen still in the portal. Iowa did get word today. I know this isn't really of concern to you, but Nico Ragaini, as they want us to pronounce his name now. He wants us to pronounce his name now. He will be returning for one more season next year. So I don't know if that does anything for the room, but certainly his leadership, he's healthy. That will help immensely. Kentucky, of course, and Iowa, very similar from a perspective of both teams are a lot better on defense than they are on offense. I think both passing games, especially with Will Levis, have underachieved, without Will Levis. So we can expect these passing games to be behind the curve. What do you expect from the back end of that Kentucky defense defending a dual threat guy? Because I mean, let's be honest, they haven't seen a dual threat on Iowa tape. I don't know. I wouldn't ever. So what does Stoops and this defensive staff prepare?
Well, they've had a couple. They've had some. You have Anthony Richardson at Florida. They faced some dual threat guys. Malik Cunningham at Louisville, and had pretty good success against them. So I think, like I said, DeAndre Square not playing it definitely hurts, but they've got some good guys up front. And like I said, I'd put Kentucky's linebacking group up against anybody's in the SEC with J.J. Weaver and Jaquez Jones if he indeed plays, and Jordan Wright. Those guys. Like I said, I think they've seen this kind of attack before, and I think they'll be ready for it. And it's another thing, adds another wrinkle. And I was reading something today about Sam Laporta being like, I guess the backup quarterback. Is there any truth to that? Or
no publicity stunt? That was all. From what I was told, Laporta was lined up. I think they lined up 320-pound Y.A. Black at quarterback. The media was there today, Kevin. So they got to look at the Iowa offense, and that's what I was told, that was a publicity stunt. If fans knew who the third string quarterback actually is, and I can tell
it's you, right?
No, it's not. No, I was gonna say it's you, Kevin. No, I've been told it is. I'm not gonna bring it up here, but fans would probably wet themselves. Hopefully you don't come to that. Hopefully you don't come to that, because you do have Carson May and Joey Labus. But you're right. I mean, let's be honest. You got two guys. That's it. They don't have any other quarterbacks on the roster. They don't have a walk on this right at this point in the season. I don't know if they had somebody earlier that's left the team, but I mean, you're talking two guys that have never. I don't think either guy has snapped a football. Maybe Labus has taken a snap or two in garbage time at some point. I don't even know about that. It is going to be intriguing from so many different vantage points. You could potentially see 5 different quarterbacks in this game. That's what's crazy to me. You could see 3 different quarterbacks legitimately. I mean, I don't know if you're an Iowa fan. I don't know why you wouldn't want to see both these quarterbacks. Like, regardless of how well Labus plays, don't you want to get a look at a 4-star kid in Carson May? Kevin, because you follow college football, you covered the sport. The Cade McNamara news, him coming to Iowa is big, but you got to have an idea of what's behind Cade next year. So this is an opportunity for these quarterbacks to potentially secure a job next year, or at least put some tape together for the transfer portal. I could see either one of these guys, probably more likely being Labus, entering the portal if he has a good game. But I will be intrigued to see how Kentucky handles a guy who's going to be running a lot. From what I've been told, the Iowa offense during bowl prep has been poor, to say the least, as far as the passing is concerned, because it was just behind from a coverage standpoint, just identifying the opposing defense. So I think he's going to have problems making quick decisions through the air. And so I think you're going to see him running the ball a lot, which could be good, but it could also get ugly for an offense that's not very good at protecting the quarterback anyways.
Right. And I think you throw in the fact that it's probably going to be raining on Saturday. The last I saw, I think it's like 70% chance of rain in Nashville. So that may just even add to the excitement or whatever. But you mentioned McNamara. You think about if we were playing this game maybe this time next year, you'd have Devin Leary quarterbacking Kentucky, and then you have McNamara coaching at Iowa, or not coaching, but quarterbacking at Iowa, and we'd be talking probably an entirely different type of game here than what we're probably going to have on Saturday.
I do recall last year, Kevin, and of course the game ended on this type of a play, pressure in the passing game. Iowa actually ran the ball decently well behind Gavin Williams and LaShawn Williams last year. Do you expect that again? I mean, obviously Caleb Johnson's probably their best, besides Sam Laporta, their best offensive weapon that's proven at this point. He's a true freshman. Do you expect Kentucky to be better against the run in this game as opposed to the game on January 1st?
I don't know if they'll be better. Kentucky has been good against the run this year in general. You know, it's not quite the Iowa numbers as far as defense goes, but Kentucky, I think, is somewhere in the top 20 in points allowed. And I was trying to look up some stats here real quick. It said the defense averages 146 yards rushing, gives up 146 yards rushing a game, and 173 through the air. So they have been a little more susceptible, I guess, to the run in certain games, there's been some games they've done really well against, and you go back to like the Vanderbilt game where Ray Davis just pretty much ran through them, and of course now Ray Davis in the transfer portal will be at Kentucky next year. So the whole, hey, here's the guy that beat us, let's get him on our team. Like I said, I think with Kentucky's linebackers and the guys up front, I think they can do a good job. I know I was going to run it, but I think if you can keep try to keep those guys in check, Kentucky's got a real good shot to win. And I'm going to say like 14-13 is the final or something like that. So.
We were joking last night that perhaps it's first 1 to 10. So
it very well could be. And another thing, real quick, Kentucky's had a lot of trouble with special teams this year. So, cost them the game at Ole Miss, cost them another like 2 games this year. So if you're getting into that point where you need a last second field goal, from the Kentucky standpoint, you got to cross your fingers and hope that everything works. Iowa, I think, has a much stronger kicking game than Kentucky. Kentucky's punter, Colin Goodfellow, basically in a way saved Kentucky's season, making a play on a bad snap, and then ended up tearing up his knee. So if it comes down to that, if it comes down to special teams, Iowa definitely has an advantage in that one for sure.
Do want to thank Gene Arthur Associates again. We'll make sure we get them their airtime. They have graciously sponsored the show. Check it out, Kevin. Home, auto, and all your insurance needs. Link in the description below. Gene Arthur Associates sponsoring the show. Kevin, how's your home and auto insurance? Is it sound?
Yes, it's good. We sorry, apologies to Gene Arthur and Associates. We don't have them in Kentucky, but we have.
That's gonna change now because we're expanding their reach, and
okay. There you go.
They're becoming a national brand.
I love it.
So I got to ask you this, Kevin. So when I look at this game on paper, we obviously know the obvious storylines with the offense is struggling, with the quarterbacks being out, with opt-outs affecting things. If you look at the defenses, I mean, these are two, you mentioned the linebacking course, 2 of the best linebacking groups in the country. Iowa, of course, down Justin Jacobs, who was out all year, most of the year with an injury, is now moving on to Oregon. But Jack Campbell, Seth Benson, those 2 position groups might be the 2 strongest on the football field this Saturday.
Oh, I agree 100%. Like I said, you can't, Campbell dominated the game last year. I think he had 14, 15 tackles, something like that. And like I said, he's everywhere. It always seems to make all the plays. And as we were just talking about with, Kentucky on the other stand, even without DeAndre Square, like I said, you have Jacquez Jones if he's healthy and able to play. Behind him, you have De'Aaron Jackson, who's done a really good job filling in for him this year. Trevin Wallace, who rose to fame last year with the block kick touchdown against Florida, and then Jordan Wright at Kentucky's. Like I said, I would put Kentucky's linebackers up. But they might not, I was probably right here. I'd say Kentucky's linebackers would be like, maybe just a step below. Apologies to any of my Kentucky fans who might be watching, but I mean, like I said, Iowa's defense is they're good for a reason because they have some really, really good players. So.
And I am just curious, Kevin. These 2 teams, I mean, the Stoops connection is obvious. The Mark Stoops connection is obvious, but Mike Stoops was not on the staff at this time last year, correct? And he is on the staff now,
right? Yeah. He's the linebackers coach. So
that's another caveat nobody's really talking about. But 2 of the 3 Stoops, we just need to get Bob in there coaching DBs, and we'll be all set.
I think Mark has probably tried, but I think Bob's still with the with the XFL and all that. But yeah, like I said, that's the thing. Like last year, we had the storyline going into the game, with Stoops, playing against his alma mater. That was, that made for great build up leading up to the game. I just said now we don't have that, but I guess you could throw Mike in there. I hadn't thought about that one. So
I'm curious. Punting situation. Obviously, Iowa has had tremendous punting with Torrey Taylor. Kentucky's got an Australian punter as well. I don't know much about William Berry, but tell us a little bit about the redshirt freshman. How much has he actually played? I mean, has he been the punter? Assuming he's been punting all year, but field position is going to be big in a game like this. It's probably going to be low scoring with two offenses. They're going to struggle to move the football. So the punting battle could be kicking battle in general, but punting specifically could be huge.
Right. Yeah. Wilson Berry, as you said, player from Australia. He played in 4 games this year and averaged 41 yards a punt. Like I said, Goodfellow, good for Colin Goodfellow. You may remember kind of rose to a little bit of, actually it was Max Duffy, a former punter here, had the whole thing with Pat McAfee. I don't know if you remember, that during the year, but like I said, Barry played in 2 games last year, averaged 37 yards a punt and 41 yards a punt this year. Like I said, he's, like I said, if it comes down to kicking game, Iowa's definitely got the advantage. I think hands down, but he's he's a very serviceable guy, gets the job done when needed. So that's about the best, that's about the best you can hope for. So
Matt Ruffalo is it Ruffalo? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yep.
His numbers look okay. I mean, I hate to, I think he's 16 to 24 on the year. Is that fair? I know you're not going to probably take a shot at the kid, but I'm just saying numbers wise, he's an average Division I Power 5 kicker. Is that?
And the thing about it is, for whatever reason, things just have not clicked like they did last year. You go back to 2021, he was 54, 56 on extra points, 10 to 13 field goals. This year, he's had a lot more field goal attempts and a lot less extra points, which goes back to the struggles that Kentucky's had on offense this year. They've had a lot of trouble with just simply snapping the ball, getting the ball back. There's been multiple times the ball, rolled back there, snapped over the head. Had issues with the long snapper this year, and I think that led to a lot of the issues. I mean, like I said, for his career, heading into this season, he had made over 80% of his field goals, which is good. You think, 4 out of 5, 12 out of 14. He was 10 out of 13 last year, and then 16 out of 24 this year. He's just, like I said, I think a lot of it they just had, for whatever reason, they have Chance Poore, who's the backup kicker, who's the holder. But for whatever reason, it's just that hasn't really, they haven't gelled this year, and I think that's been some of Ruffalo's problem. Because long time ago I was high school kicker, and that snap and the hold and the laces out always very, very important. So like I said, he's a good kicker. He did he struggled during the middle of the season. The last couple games they started to seem to get it all together. So hopefully for Kentucky fans that will continue going into Saturday.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Chance Poore is the holder, the backup kicker, and the backup punter.
I don't know about the backup punter. He might be now.
He's on the depth chart.
Yeah, he's on the depth chart. Yeah, so he was coming out of high school. He was like the number one. He won like some award at like Ray Guy's camp. So he can do every position. He does the kickoffs as well. So
why isn't he kicking and punting then if he was that good?
He was the kicker going into 2020 and really, really struggled. And so he got replaced by Ruffalo. And basically Ruffalo just never gave up the job. So that's where we are right now. So he missed a couple of kicks against Florida in the game that they lost in that one, and had a couple other games that 2020 season with missed kicks. And so Ruffalo kind of came back and took over, and he's just never given up the job. So
I would not be surprised based on what you're telling me if Chance Poore ends up in the portal on January 1st. Does he have 1 year left? I think
he has one. I think he has 1 year left. But I want to say he went through senior day activities this year. So I mean, it's a possibility he could end up somewhere. He could end up somewhere else. I have not heard anything about that, but you never know.
Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football. Kevin, tell us about your work and where people can find you. I see your handle here on Twitter, but talk a little bit about where people can find your work. Yeah,
just go to Last Word on College Football. Like I said, or my Twitter handle, the very cleverly titled at Kevin McGuffey. You know, when I first joined Twitter, I tried about 8 different variations of things, and all those names were taken. So I'm like, okay, if somebody has my name, then I give up. But you know, kind of thing. But like I said, yeah, you can check us out at Last Word. You know, we have a lot of. I think we cover about 20 to 25 different teams. You know, we have an Iowa writer. We have, you know, Wake Forest. We got you know, Ohio State, not Ohio State, but like I said, just, you know, check out the website, and you know, you might find something, you know, something to your liking. We do previews and do previews of every bowl game, you know, previews and recaps. So that's so I've been working on Music City Bowl. I'm also doing a preview for the Georgia Ohio State game. So I'm really, you guys were talking about that earlier, wanting to see Michigan play and wanting to see Ohio State play. I'm really looking forward to those games on Saturday. But yeah, just give the website, come check it out, or give us a follow at Last Word on CFB on Twitter, and you know, you can see all the things there too. So yeah, come over, check it out, see what you think.
Kevin McGuffey, Last Word on College Football. Kevin, appreciate you taking the time for the second straight year. And I'm telling you this: if it's Iowa Kentucky in 2023. Then just shut down the sport. But I always enjoy speaking with you. And you know, I guess final question for you, maybe I asked you this a year ago, is I know there have been reports by people that I would probably view as credible that have indicated that there is a clause in Mark Stoops' contract that the one job he would potentially take would be Iowa. There's an indication of that in his contract. Is that true?
I don't know if it's officially true, but that's been heavily rumored. That, you know, if Ferentz ever left, if Iowa offered him the job, that would be the one that he would possibly leave for, because his name has been linked to some other jobs, you know, before. But I said he's got it pretty good here at Kentucky now. You know, he's in the 10th season. He's the second longest tenured coach now behind Saban. He became the all-time wins leader at Kentucky this year, passing Bear Bryant. I can't see him leaving, but if he did, I think Iowa would definitely. You know, just because obviously the history, I think I would be the job if it ever happened.
Kevin McGuffey, check out his stuff at lastwordoncollegefootball.com, and certainly follow him on Twitter. Kevin, we'll look forward to a musical game down in
yes. Well, I was gonna say this. Maybe if we're talking next year, it's because Kentucky and Iowa were playing in the playoffs. How about that?
Both teams need to take a serious boost on offense for that to happen.
Yes, but, absolutely. But we can always dream.
They're members of the 2 best conferences in the country. We'll give them that. Thanks, right. Kevin. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I hope everybody has a happy New Year. Be safe out there. The weather, no joke, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, sir.